how did I achieve the highlights in the nose and around the eye on this portrait of the super cutie Oreo. You can get all the supplies that I use in my videos at paint333.com. Lifting is just removing pigment from your paper that has already dried. Here you can see I have some swatches of color that have dried on my paper, and I'm simply taking a wet brush, blotting it on my towel, so I have a blotted brush with just plain water on it, and I'm scrubbing that pigment off, and as it gets onto my brush, I'm cleaning it off and wiping that brush on my rag. Dipping it in water, scrubbing the pigment, wiping my brush on the rag. And you can see that it's revealing part of the paper and creating a natural highlight. Just keep in mind that the amount of pigment you're actually able to lift off the paper will vary between your paint colors, especially if you're using a staining color. I'm going to start by lifting off some of the highlight texture dots that you can sometimes see on dog noses. So I have my wet blotted brush, I'm dipping it into water, and I'm just scrubbing areas of pigment off of the nose. And then as my brush gets full of that pigment, I'll wipe it on the rag. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video so you can kind of see how I'm doing this. And then I'll show you what it looks like doing some of this lifting around the eye. I'm looking for kind of a cluster of organic shapes, and I'm really kind of leaning into just trying to use the tip of my brush, and I'm using a stiffer brush too. So I would look for a synthetic or a synthetic blend brush versus just a 100% natural hair brush to really get in and scrub that pigment off. I'm going to go ahead and do a very similar thing around the eye. A lot of times on these eye shapes around animal eyes will have a really nice highlight. And you could try to kind of leave it the white of the paper or paint a watery mix of color over those highlight areas. But sometimes I've found that lifting can provide the most natural organic shape to these highlighted areas that I like to kind of lean into lifting, especially around the eyes where that kind of reflection happens on the eyelid of the animal. So I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm going in with my blotted brush, cleaning it off, dabbing it on the rag as needed, and just moving that pigment that's already on the page both around and off the paper to get a really pretty highlight happening. Once you lift off a shape, you might just see areas that you could paint over a little bit more or refine or just make those edges of the lifted area maybe a little bit sharper. So if you're ever looking at your painting and thinking, oh, I painted too much and how do I get it back? Lifting will be one of the best tools in your arsenal. All is not lost. You can always lift. And lifting isn't just a rescue technique. It can also be an intentional technique to create really cool highlight areas and texture. And I often do it on dog noses especially. You can learn a lot more techniques and more about my 333 method for watercolor right here on my YouTube channel. If this video was helpful, I invite you to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. I will see you in the next video. Very happy painting.